Kia ora. Let's do a panel, because we're running a little bit behind. So we're going to do this at speed with high-speed introductions from wonderful people like Melanie Langlotz.
Do you want me to tell, to say what we do? Okay, cool.
Give everybody a little, introduce yourself and tell everybody what these cool things are that you make.
Hi guys, Melanie Langlotz, I'm the CEO and founder of GeoAR Games. We've actually shortened it to GeoAR because, you know, everybody calls us GR these days. We do games for government or cities. So we basically gamify city messages to the community. This could be water departments or digital playgrounds or anything really. And so we're working with a lot of cities around the world and mainly augmented reality outdoors. And that's probably us.
Cool. Then we have Kat.
Kia ora, ko Caitlin Tot Aho. I am from Wrestler and also Soul Ether, which is a new company that we're creating, which is a sci-fi fantasy world, but make VR, AR, and all sorts of video stuff. And yeah.
Many things.
Many things.
Now, I will point out that I stole most of that screenshot just off of Wrestler's website. What it doesn't show is like the 800 other projects you folks have got going. This is like just some of the interactive stuff. I'm so sorry. Crystal, go.
Hi. I am the studio manager of Staples VR. Don't let the name fool you. We do a lot more than virtual reality. We work in creative technology. We do AR, VR, tools for business, educational pieces, dabble in a little bit of entertainment, film post and 360. And I think the crux of what we do a lot of problem solving in the, you know, the XR mixed reality kind of space there, yeah.
Thank you. And Sam.
Kia ora everyone, Sam Ramlu, and I have 3 hats on today. Method, which is a creative tech studio, so we do a lot of work in exhibitions and client-related content across AR, VR. Mighty Eyes, which is recently rebranded from Wanderer, and we launched Wanderer earlier this year in January, which is a VR time travel adventure game, and that is my claim to fame. Thank you, James. And we also recently, because I didn't have enough to do, launched Mad Carnival earlier this year. We're working on an AR, secret AR game, and some other cool things. Yeah.
Many cool things. Kia ora. So I'm James Everett. These days I'm creative director for Niantic Aotearoa New Zealand. Just prior to that, our team, we were NZXR, and before that we were Magic Leap. As NZXR, we spent about 2 years doing AR, VR consulting, using our team's really deep well of experience, which is usually contained within these larger companies, and you don't have access to those teams. So that was us. We were out and available and accessible. And so we made lots of fun things, like helped out with the Skatrix team, making cool AR skateboarding things happen. There was a Destination Mars, the dome projection. Did anybody here get to see that? Hey, cool. It was a really good time. The Hackman team were amazing, and it was installed here for a couple of months, which is like pretty, for me personally, like in my career, it's one of the coolest things, is like having something in Te Papa. It's just like, ooh. Story XR was some technology we're building for geolocated AR experiences. That reaction is real, the pterodactyl is not. And the Great Crane Kickoff was one of the last projects we did as NZXR, where we were given early access to Qualcomm Snapdragon Space's headset technology to build a game. We could make whatever, so we made a game where you make cakes with a crane attached to your head, because that's what we do. And then in April, we were acquired by Niantic, the folks that make games like Pokemon Go and Ingress, where we had been working with them.
You're acquired?
Yeah. Oh, I haven't seen Kat in a while. Excellent. Our relationship with Niantic, actually, they were the second client we had as NZXR. We built this codename Urban Legends AR multiplayer demo with them. We got to work with Kat and the Wrestler crew on making a really cool video trailer for that that was used all over the world for lots of big events. And we worked with them for the better part of 2 years on some very interesting projects. And at some point, they were like, "Do you want to just do this full time?" So now we do. And so Niantic's a very interesting company. It's obviously, there is the games business, there is the games publishing business, and there is the platform business and web AR business. So Niantic Lightship is the kind of overall branding for the technology that's now available to other developers to use for making AR content. And Eighth Wall was acquired just a few weeks before we were, actually, and they are a really impressive web AR platform. So all those things live into that. Our job now at Niantic is to keep doing the thing that we do. The 12 of us here in Aotearoa, our weird R&D, AR, we make neat stuff for them and try and break the tools before other people have to, use them. That's it in a nutshell. So let's have a chat. We're quite a range of folks here from business models, types of shipped things, VR, AR, geolocative, on location. Everybody's covered just such a wide range of things. And one thing that I'd really like to kind of hear from everybody is where are you at with your business today and your teams today compared to where you were even a few years ago? What are the types of things that have changed the most in the last few years? Because this is an ever-changing landscape.
Okay, I'll go first. I think for us, there has been quite a big change over the last 2 years. So when we were first getting into it, a lot of it was more R&D based, how far can we push it? What can we grab and make work and do this? So a lot of it was quite quick turnarounds and just trying to get, that sort of wow, that factor, and also trying to get data on how people experienced it and how well it went and what everyone else is doing. That was kind of the start of it. And through that, we learnt so fast, and now we're pivoting into more sustainable projects where we're actually working with someone and we're doing an educational roadmap where we're starting with one learning, moving on to another one, and we're growing from that and sustaining that and deploying to all the many headsets and going across AR and VR to deliver packages. So I feel like the technology is kind of stabilized a little bit in AR and VR, and although we do a bit more experimentation and adding new stuff in there and mixing it together, I feel like I have more trust in virtual reality and augmented reality to be able to say we can make you a sustainable product, if that makes sense.
A little less duct tape, a little more business model?
Yes.
From our point of view, I think when we were doing AR, late 2013 when we started, and then VR, with the first Oculus kit, I remember at the time when we had done a couple of projects thinking, this will be it, it's going to take off from here. And after the first VR project that we did, I think it took another 18 months to get the next commercial project. So it was just a really interesting time, and I think we've always felt this along the way with new technology, is that, launching something quickly, but then the uptake, especially in Aotearoa, is always so much slower. So what feels weird is that we're starting to finally pick up momentum, which we thought was going to happen back in 2016, 2017. So seeing VR, especially for us, it's all about, in terms of Wanderer, the game is all about looking at next gen now, having been able to launch, but essentially on a sunset platform for PS, PlayStation, VR1, and then across all the other platforms, is now looking at the future and what that might hold for the game and how we can kind of support it long term. But what's great is actually we've seen that support, and we know that people like Sony and Meta are now supporting the space a lot more actively and growing the audience, because we've had a very niche audience, but what has been great about that is when you have a niche audience, they're very supportive, and they're out there being your advocates and ambassadors, and so we want to turn, we want them out there showcasing the game in the future. So that's on the VR side, and augmented reality very similar. We launched an AR walking tour. I think potentially the first one in Aotearoa back in 2018, 17. And thinking that, it's going to take off. We're going to be doing, walking tours left, right, and centre, and it's just been so interesting that for a couple of years there wasn't a lot of that happening, and now we're working on a couple. So really great to kind of have content that's really that's local, as well as being able to go out internationally and see this audience internationally available for it.
Actually, Sam, I'm going to echo that. So we started out as part of Lightning Lab, which was the business incubator in Wellington. Woohoo, here. And we came out before Pokemon Go. We pitched to investors who laughed us out of the room and said nobody in their right mind would run around with a phone in front of their face outside. And then Pokemon Go happened. And I thought at the time that, oh, maximum we've got a year before everybody is going to be on the AR bandwagon and geolocation. And here we are today. And we only got picked up in the US pretty much in 2020. And that was only because of COVID and social distancing, because what we do promotes social distancing in a natural way. So that was really interesting. I thought that the pickup of the audience, the users, understanding VR and AR would be much, much quicker, but it just wasn't. It's only just starting. One thing for those of you in the room who might be thinking of starting a game company, had we taken investment back in 2016, we would have been under. We would have lost, because the investors would have lost patience with us. And so we bootstrapped the entire way by doing service for hire and working on our own products. And so the products were, over the years, very carefully developed with a lot of feedback from cities and from government and what have you. And as part of that, we came up with a strategy which we call app recycling and pay it forward model. So we're sharing the assets with the cities and the government. Nobody has real ownership. We own it, but we share it with all of our clients and all of our partners. So it's quite a unique business model where we promote asset sharing and app recycling. Yeah, it's quite different, but that's definitely allowed us to have a client base that is global and is growing, and which government is seriously embracing.
That's really cool. For me, I think if we think back to, like, I don't know, 10 years ago when VR popped its head back up again, whenever it was, people were really worried that VR was going to take over films, and I kind of came from the film world, so that was kind of hilarious, but it really is that multimedia space now. So there are books and films and games and VR, and they're all adding to the experience, not detracting. So I think that's being embraced now, which is really cool, especially now the metaverse or the multiverse, which everyone's talking about. People are going, oh, I kind of get it now, the convergence of all the technology and the ideology around Web3 and owning your own data and being in control of that is really interesting for people. So I think that's a really big shift, especially this year. And an example, I guess the New Zealand Police is one of our big clients, and we did a VR experience for them. We're still doing it, but we also made it into a mobile game, so looking at that multimedia approach where, even though VR is quite inaccessible for a lot of people, the mobile one can be the scatter across lots of people, and then the VR is that really intimate connection one-on-one with people. So, yeah.
Been an interesting couple of years for everybody. I think for us, we came out of Magic Leap, which was very much a strange little bubble of its own, right? That's about as niche as it gets in a lot of ways. But it was also, and still is, the Magic Leap 1 as a piece of hardware is still the most capable AR glasses on the planet. Until the ML2, which is looking like it's going to stomp that. And then other people will come along with lots of fun stuff after it. But it was very strange to be in this bubble where we were cool, we're seeing and using and building the future. And nobody else is. And so it was okay, our expectations and our understanding coming out of Magic Leap, we were we had been heads down in this stuff for 5, 6, in some cases 7 years. And to come out into the wider market, especially at the beginning of the pandemic when we all got laid off and then everybody stopped spending money on anything because no one had any idea how anything was going to go. We're ah! And thankfully the game development community in Aotearoa is wonderful and made connections for us that let us survive, so it was great. But as we did that, we were just oh, where we've been living is a fantasy land, effectively. Like, it doesn't actually reflect what's out there. But we can try and like push back towards that fantasy land by going, well, we'll take this experience that we've got, and like, people need cool VR stuff, they need cool AR stuff. What do we know about these things that are different than most teams? Let's double down on that. And so over the last couple of years, I think what we saw was AR starting to become, mobile phone AR anyway, starting to become viable as a platform, but still incredibly niche, right? Like, there is a real challenge around AR of just running a camera plus the game at the same time. You may notice your phone gets warm. There's like, you know, there's all these like real challenges around just the basics of the technology still today. And I think what you see from, you know, this wide variety of projects that everyone here has shipped is that there's nothing even resembling a right answer. And I don't think there's going to be for a long time. There are specific problems or audiences or experiences that you want to create, or specific problems you want to solve, and there's like 400 freaking ways you could do it. Which one makes the most sense based on the available technology, your team's skill set, and all those other things? Like, it's a hard problem to square. But it's been an interesting couple of years with lots of stuff changing and starting to mature a bit. And I think, you know, it's kind of coming around to the, like, how we survived as NZXR was looking for these really weird niche things that we could leverage our expertise into so that we could pay the bills and keep the lights on. And that led us to doing things like immersive theater, VR health and safety training, deals where we were probably going to take like a little bit of money up front, but then potentially see stuff on the back. Like, we looked at every possible business model. I'm curious for everybody here, have you felt a shift in that? Like, are you seeing, because like in a mature business and most folks working in games, right, it's like, okay, we're releasing to the App Store or Steam, or now thankfully with VR, like Quest is big enough as a platform that it's like, at least you've got kind of a Steam equivalent there. How is that shaping up so far, do you feel, in your businesses? Or is it?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, for a long time, and I think we all probably felt this, is you're out there doing something that's so new, it can be really isolating, you know, and again, you're in your bubble going, we really believe in this technology, we can see the legs here, but when year after year, you're not seeing the audience pick up, you know, the technology might not have moved as quickly, and people are like, oh, VR's going down, VR's dead, like, that's really hard to then maintain your business and kind of keep your vision at the forefront. And you know, like a personal example is with Wanderer. We were literally at the stage of one last shot. You know, we've been trying to get funding for that for 2.5 years. We'd poured a lot of time, effort, and money into it, and literally we're like, if we don't get this, you know, this last chance, we'll go to a couple of conferences. And we got through that, and to be able to get through that and launch a game and kind of get the sort of response that we've had really did justify a lot of that, which was great, but it could have gone the other way, you know, and it's not, we're still launching in a market that, you know, the audience isn't big. So for us, it's still very much about a future play rather than a current play. You know, if we launched in the Steam market, you know, to like a non-VR game, it'd be a different story, right? So, but then we wouldn't be doing something different. So for us, very much, we're still not there. You know, it's great that we've got things like Quest. You know, when we were pitching Wanderer back then, Quest was being prototyped, and we were really excited for what might make this so much more accessible. We're looking at AR games at the moment, you know, on platforms, on social platforms, and that wasn't a thing, you know, 2 years ago. So it's so early. I mean, you know, what Niantic are doing as well, but it's so early, the audience is still not there. So for us, it's always about growing that audience, but it's very much a, what could this look like in 3, 4, 5 years' time? Because right now, we're not there, but the vision is still there to you know, to create that audience and content that we all see in other industries, like the games industry, and what happened with mobile, right? And, you know, mobile gaming, which almost didn't exist, what, 10 years ago even? So, yeah, sorry, that's a very long-winded answer.
I might say something next. So one of the big problems for us was, so first of all, we have a very unusual monetization model. because our apps are for government and cities, they are free to play, free of advertising, free of data mining, free of everything. They're squeaky clean. Otherwise, we wouldn't be working with government. Which means that the government or the cities are actually subscribing to the game. So they pay for the game. And then it is up to them to bring the users to the game, which they are not very good at, we've discovered. So because they treat it like a traditional playground, and we keep telling them that it's invisible and people can't see it, so your traditional 2 Facebook posts in 6 months might not work. And it took a long time to find a city champion, which ended up being Miami, to show us how it's done. And they literally opened our eyes how we needed to talk to government, how we needed to talk to cities to teach them how to market something that's invisible. And we're only just now starting to get our brand champions, so teaching other cities how to do it. So that was one thing. But the other thing that I find very, very difficult to maneuver is that every single month, App Store and Play Store are bringing in new regulations, and they are very much crippling us, especially around, kids apps like ours. We're a family app, but we do need to collect GPS location in order to keep the kids safe and keep the content where it should be, and so it doesn't appear on the road or in a car park. That's one thing. So maneuvering, every time we're doing an upgrade, maneuvering the rejection from App Store or Play Store is challenging, and trying to decipher the feedback that is often not clear at all. And then the other thing is that often users who just don't understand how any of the programming works either, so they don't know anything about GPS, accelerometer, gyroscope, compass, and they expect us to function like Google Maps. And so you try to educate everybody in the market with something that we've been working on. Like, I've been in the field of geolocation now since 2011. And I'm often surprised how little understanding there is out there about the sensors that your mobile phone has. So we're still, like everybody else has said, we're still at the beginning. People are not educated enough to really understand what their devices are capable of, or if they're not. No, you can't download a compass from the App Store. It doesn't work. Your phone either has a compass or it doesn't. But that's literally the conversations that we're still having.
Sorry to jump back in again, but I was just going to say the other thing is, I think we all felt, and I don't know how you guys felt about it, when we were all starting out in the industry, seeing clients want to kind of do some of these projects, there was also a lot of natural competition that came out of it, and the sense of us all working against each other, and none of us really wanted that. I don't think any of us kind of, ever felt comfortable, organically comfortable about that. But what I've loved over the years is that, we're all on this panel together, and over time have become friends and started collaborating more, which I think is just such a valuable thing. And the industry made us do that, which is what what was awful about it. It's like, how else can we win in this industry when there's 2 or 3 projects coming out of what was happening at the time with client work? It's like, how do we do that? Which is kind of great to see how we've grown up in this industry, and now looking at ways we can all collaborate and work together, and that there's, I think, so much more to go around, but also in the kind of more games and original IP space, there's less of that. So I think for us, coming out of the commercial space, and a lot of the stuff we're doing has been so just mentally fulfilling. I'm not sure if that's just me, but.
I think the thing I would say is the New Zealand market is small. So like any money that goes around, it's like very tight. So if there is James did really well with the international play, and that's like super amazing to be able to get that. And I think like currently now, the trend that I'm seeing is the talk of recession, whether it's here or not, is like really affecting the way clients are thinking about investing, where they're investing and what they're doing. Is it a risky play, or is it, playful, whatever? And I think, XR stuff really does sit in that like more experimental space. So will they be pulling back? Hopefully not, but not sure. But I also think that the VC space is starting to catch on to it a bit more in terms of, like, again, multimedia. It's not just XR, you know, solely on its own, but really as part of the whole deal of, like, how you do stories and stuff. So that's exciting. Heaps more appetite for investing, yeah, which gives it more sustainable, like, long-term income.
I mean, I can't talk too much about the business sides of things. I'm more of a technical lead than anything. But what I see in terms of us, you know, the pattern is just looking ahead and pivoting and always making sure that we're solving a problem and doing something for the right reason, not doing something just because I feel like in this area, if you just do something because you feel like it just doesn't work out. It's too hard to do that sort of stuff. I think from a technical point of view, trying to work on these things, like, I don't think I'm glad that the platforms are becoming more accessible. And I'm glad that, you know, Oculus is doing their thing, we've got Meta and all that sort of stuff, but they're definitely not making it easy. Like, I completely agree with what you're saying about the app stores. I get an email almost every week saying they've changed a new policy, they've changed a new this, they've changed a new that, and it's hard to keep up with everything. And then we've got this, you know, promise of business stores coming out, which was more based on, you know, educational focus or commercial focus for AR, VR, and how we can, you know, gamify that sort of education. But then they're pitching it and then you use it and it's like, oh, this is not ready. No, it's not ready. And even Oculus has its problems as well. So, I mean, for us, in a technical sense, trying to really push our stuff, I think the hardware is starting to get there now, and now it's the platform. The platform needs to keep up. That's what needs to be better now. Yeah. Well, that's what we've seen anyway.
We're working on it from the AR side, which is fun. Yeah, the Lightship stuff is coming along really well, and my eyes have been open to the possibilities of web AR. Actually, like the last time I think I looked at it with any seriousness was probably 2 or 3 years ago. And it wasn't something that we investigate as NZXR. Coming into Niantic with Eighth Wall joining, we're like, what's the deal? And we had a chat with Eighth Wall folks, and they gave us like a cool workshop. And in an hour, we built 3 or 4 little apps, and like, you just point your phone at your screen, it grabs the QR code. Now it's running. Now I'm pushing debug messages backwards and forwards between my phone and my browser, and I'm like, what? Okay, cool. It's pretty neat stuff. Just looking at time and things here, we have 2 microphones here, so if anybody's got questions or wants to start thinking about a question and start drifting in that general direction, please do. I'm going to ask the panel kind of one more question, but maybe somebody's got something exciting that they'd like to ask us as well. So have a think or grab a mic. So the thing, I guess, the natural next question probably is, what is the future? When you look at your crystal ball, what are the things that you're like most excited about in the next 2, 5, 10 years?
Can I go?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You got all kinds of fun things in store.
So it was interesting that in 2017 we were approached by a random Chinese businessman who said to us, you've got the future of theme parks developed. And I was like, do we? It's like, yes, you do. It's like, really? Tell me more. And so he started to tell me that the theme park industry was losing money because a meter of a roller coaster costs on average $10,000 and the maintenance of a roller coaster is ridiculously expensive. The people are not coming anymore, not enough, and so, you know, maintaining a theme park, think Rainbow's End or whatever, you know, is insanely expensive. And so he was looking at mixed reality, you would say, you know, he didn't really know what he was talking about at the time, but he said digital, anything digital where you can just refresh the content and just, you know, like build new content and you don't have to maintain anything other than the digital format. And little did I know that only later I learned when I was pitching with him at a Chinese conference that he was the theme park designer of 24 theme parks in China. And that was in the middle of the pitch. It was really funny. So he knew his stuff, and we went to China and we discovered that they actually already have fully blown virtual reality, mixed reality theme parks over there. And so in Malaysia, same thing. So if you look up the Rift or whatever, you know, those are full blown digital theme parks. And I guess the more I look into it, when you now start talking to anyone who's looking at location-based experiences and shopping malls or whatever, everybody is going down that route and looking at, shopping malls are ghost malls. What are we going to do with it? How can we use the space for entertainment, bring people back? I don't quite remember all the figures that I had at the time from China, but they were building over 1,000 shopping malls, and they knew already that about 70% of that was going to be ghost malls. So all of that was going to be, available for location-based experiences and other things. So I guess at some stage, we have already a couple of companies in New Zealand who are doing that, but I think there's going to be more of that.
Hi. You did just get that.
I just
Wow.
I never claimed to be quick.
I personally am excited for quite a few things in the VR space, but like also in the AR space as well. Again, with augmented reality, I think that what people are really having a thirst for is just being able to have, walk in somewhere and have this experience like really quickly. Phone up and then they can see all this magical stuff in a store or an experience and stuff like that. I'm excited for when that is happening more often and it's happening really well and we're not, worried about your phone and whether it's going to handle it. So I'm excited for that in the future because we're getting there, and I've seen like the stuff with Eighth Wall and that, it's incredibly well done. In terms of VR, I guess specifically, like I'm excited for how fast and rapidly the technology is moving for digital twins and making an exact copy of something in the real world and what you can do with that, whether it's in the film industry and the, in augmented reality, virtual reality training, all that sort of stuff. The LiDAR technology is not only becoming more accessible and cheaper, but it's also becoming better, and how to process it's becoming better. And then that's, improving on our wow factors of really getting into that different experience that, people, I think, originally thought what VR was going to be for. I don't know. Yeah, I guess, and I'm just excited to see like everything that's coming out of New Zealand as well with what you guys are doing. It's incredible. It's so exciting. I get so excited when I see all these different projects pop up, and it's really just growing everything together.
For me, my dream of the future is like storytelling, but it's like interconnected and seamless. So say you're like driving in your car and you're listening to an audiobook, and then you like walk into your house and you're like, Siri or whatever it is at the time, pop up the movie part where this book ended. So like thinking about how things can like seamlessly translate between different mediums and stuff, and then track my viewership. So now I know like when I've watched that movie or that piece of content, I never have to be fed that again. But it's like, oh, you like that world, or you like this, like try this or try that. So I think it's more of like a personalized storytelling experience. And that, again, I'm like XR across everything from books to films to VR to anything, like games, just anything for me is like great. And one of the things, especially for COVID, that I've realized is like when people go, oh, you don't be in your house all the time, like go, don't play games, don't be in VR. It's like there's a world to see. I think we're really privileged to be able to say that, because there are a lot of people in the world whose apartment is the size of my bedroom, and if they're at COVID, like they actually can't really get out and walk around. They don't have Mount Vic up the road that they can just do at lunchtime. So I think there's a really big opportunity to give people who don't have access to green and nature and big spaces all the time, to show them a different world, like as a TARDIS in their bedroom, in a way that people can do it that way. So that's like really exciting for me, because I think the world will go more in that space. I think we're going to get more populated, overpopulated, and yeah.
I think Kat literally just took some stuff out of my mind, and I've lost everything I was going to say. But storytelling is definitely something that I think for us we can see, growing in the space. So for a long time it was very novel. There were a lot more arcade-style content across VR and AR. So with Wanderer, for us, it's been able to tell something, in terms of being able to have a a longer gameplay session, with the story that goes along with that and how we can reveal worlds within it. So that definitely is something across both AR and VR that we see coming to life more. And exactly what you were saying about, that Ready Player One scenario of, and I don't know how many people have watched it, but they're in their little rooms, and I guess that's exactly it. We're so privileged here. We're doing an AR game that's around gardens, and growing gardens in your space, and we just we realise how little other people might have access to that content. So as much as we go, don't put that headset on and go out and see the world, for a lot of people that's a very different scenario. So how can we expand that? And I see it as being accessible, at the same time. What COVID, I think, made us all realise is how much we love each other's company, and actually just how much we weren't ready for a full-time life of something like Ready Player One, and how we love engaging with friends and family. So the location-based experiences, a lot of people were thinking it was going to die off. In fact, if anything, we have more museums wanting to do more content like that. They're a bit more touch, kind of more sensitive to what can be touch-related versus what you can experience without doing that. But it's great to kind of see that tech can really help enhance people's lives. I think we all agree that that's what it's about at the end of the day, rather than replacing it. So very much a future where we can have all these mediums add on to each other and provide more value rather than replacing. TV never replaced books, so why is that the immediate thought that anything's going to replace? How great is it that we all have access to so much ways to consume amazing stories and content and games? Yeah.
I think we've had is radio going to kill, is television going to kill radio? Are the movies going to kill television? Is games fighting everybody? Is it it feels like this conversation goes around every few years like clockwork, right? This is no, it's just one more way that humans will express themselves, and it comes and goes. For me, I'm really excited about the way that I think AR, and I'm going to go with my AR bias here because that's just the world I'm living in most of the time these days, and the one I'm really excited about. The things that are coming up next, and from the Niantic perspective, like with Lightship, what we're doing around things like the visual positioning system, which will let multiple people co-locate to a shared AR space around a way spot super quickly. It's wild, what we're going to be able to get away with. So the things that we started building as NZXR with Story XR, where we put a huge monster right out here in the harbor and had a bunch of people looking at it and able to attack it and stuff, and it's that was cool. We had to do a lot of interesting hackery to make that kind of stuff work. And what we're able to do now is help the teams that we work with at Niantic to go, right, how do we make that not hacky? How do we make that actually a grounded part of the thing? So the world is going to get covered effectively in virtual content. It's going to happen, and a lot of it is going to be terrible because that's the nature of content. And how we all interface with it, the things that I think about the most right now are really about how people are going to interface with this new reality that's going to confront them. And I'm excited about it, and I'm terrified of it, but I'm mostly excited about it. So I think for me, if I was, with my NZXR hat on before we joined Niantic, the way that we were thinking about the business was, how are we building tools to get more people involved in making content in this augmented reality space, to be able to tell their stories, to be able to show their experiences as quickly and easily as possible, because the barrier to entry is just so damn high. And we have to reduce that barrier so people can get in. And that's what I feel like we're seeing a lot right now, whether it's AR or VR, is that the barriers just keep coming down, the tech is getting better, and the opportunities are certainly growing, but it is, as we've all highlighted, very, very early. So we have a couple of minutes. Questions? There's one over here. Two over here.
Hi. Speaking of things that are frightening and exciting, Meta has clearly made a very large investment into the VR space with the metaverse, its concept of the metaverse, and of course its investment in the headsets. I guess as a quick throwaway, how are you feeling about the concept of the metaverse, how that exists in VR? I know, I don't want to ask, but
a quick throwaway?
Just a quick throwaway. What do you think the metaverse, Yeah, I don't think we are ready to exist in the Ready Player One / Snow Crash world. The way the metaverse is being conceptualized is very different than I think the sci-fi dystopians or utopians. But all that to say, how are you feeling about that? And do you feel like that's where we're going, or do you feel like that is just lots of buzzwords from large corporations?
I'll give it a go. I mean, when it's there, when we can see it, when we can have a play with it, I think, yeah, we'll be game to kind of see what's going on. But yeah, I think this is really just going to be, let's see how this goes, and take it step by step, because it's a really big concept and there's lots of questions. Like, as an, not as social person, I would say, why would you want to do that? But there's lots of different reasons for why that would exist, and I'm really interested to see what's going to turn up in it. And I'm sure we're going to have a go at getting in there and trying to see what we can do. But it's a thing.
I don't know why I'm jumping on this, but no. All I was going to say is that yeah, I know. Throwing myself. But I was just going to say that I think the metaverse is just another version of how we all socialise. It's just another version of going from online chat rooms and all of those sort of things. I guess it's just the next step. As technology has become available, why not see yourselves as avatars? Why not spend that time in rooms where you can, rather than just online text? So I think if we look at it that way, in a way to connect with friends and family and be socially connected, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think when a lot of people think about the metaverse, it starts to look like a scary place because they go, well, what else could be done in here? So I think for me personally, I'm really interested to see how they regulate some of this. We've already seen that the likes of Facebook and all of that hasn't been that well necessarily regulated. And my concern is I've got an 8-year-old, and what does that look like for him in the future if he's in a world where he's able to chat with anyone? Who's there doing that? And that problem's that's not a new problem. We've had that problem with chats and all of that before. So I guess it's kind of just how can we keep growing with that and not being too scared of the overall idea, because it's another space where we can all go and hang out. And I agree, Crystal, I don't know if I necessarily want to go and hang out in those spaces, but if we look at it that way as another social space, I think you can start to ground it a bit.
I'm delving into the metaverse, so I can kind of talk a little bit about this, but I think that one of the biggest, I actually cringe when I hear the word metaverse. I don't know if anyone else does.
It's a lot like internet superhighway.
Yeah, exactly. And then when Facebook renamed to Meta, everyone was like, yeah. So I think that's crap. But I think for me what's exciting is the convergence of all the technologies and the ideologies that are coming out, which is super cool. So if you think about the Web3 protocols, which is where you own your own data, you give permissions, and you can go into spaces that you control. I think that's really interesting. We've got DAOs, like decentralized autonomous organizations, thinking about we can structure companies in completely different ways, which are way more equal. Like NFTs, how can you do proper contracts that can are super transparent? That all of this technology is helping us see how that could be possible, which is super cool. And from a creative industry, it's really hard to make money from creative work, like films, TV shows, anything. And so for me, I see this as an interesting way where the tech world, which makes so much money, is now understanding the value of creativity. So for me, it's exciting, crappy that Meta took the name, because it's calling yourself the internet. But yeah, but also no one knows. So for me, if we go, everyone crapped on VR, and then we're cool, but it's actually cool, we love it. It's the same with the metaverse. The metaverse is just another new fad, and what will it be? We don't really know, but it's the Wild West, and it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of crazy stuff that goes on. But the other reason I'm in technology is because I think it's really scary. AI is freaky, VR is freaky. When I first got into VR, it was porn and shooting games. So my reason that I got into it was to create experiences for different people who didn't want to shoot things. So it's dancing and experiences like that. So I think the metaverse for me is the same. How can we create spaces where people feel safe, they can express their own identity online, and something that is their online version and that they can control.
I'm gonna, Mel, unless if you've got a strong metaverse opinion you want to share, we can totally do that, or we can do one lightning question, I thought.
Do another question.
Okay, so we've got time for one more question. Is that cool? Okay, cool, I got a thumbs up, so who's got next? I see a dance happening. Dancing is winning.
No one's doing anything, so I'm gonna go. Hi, thank you for the panel. So there are obviously a lot of accessibility issues around VR and AR, and one with VR is motion sickness. It's something I deal with. I think the longest I've been able to keep a VR headset on is about a minute before I had to go lie down. The idea of a VR roller coaster, I think, would actually kill me. So I was curious if that's something that is being worked on and mitigated. Is it something that even can be mitigated? You know, like, is there a potential for a decent proportion of people to be excluded from this huge area of the world that's kind of becoming more prevalent?
I get really motion sickness as well, and we won't release an experience that gives people motion sickness. So I don't know if you're like extremely motion sick, but the sensor technology is like where you need to go. You can't just do like a 360 video headset. It's got to be like tracking your whole movement and making sure it's properly set up, and then go into a really good quality experience where they're not like moving you through a space where your body's sitting still. You have to be like, you're like in control of everything that you do, as if you're in real life, you know, up and down, side to side.
I also get really, really motion sickness, and I think it is, there's a stat that more females get motion sick than males, but go and try Wanderer. It is a high quality experience. Just a little plug. No, but look, this is one thing that we've had to grapple with as well, and thinking about next gen and how that might, you know, improve, and how we can improve accessibility through it, as well as other ways of looking at that. But one thing that was really interesting from the community when we launched is, you know, we were really used to making a lot of more commercial games for kind of more public audiences, and when we launched Wanderer and we had, you know, movement where you could see there's choice in there. You can teleport or you can move through locomotion. And what was crazy is the hardcore players wanted more movement, you know, like wanted to be more active. So for us, it's about that balance of making sure how we can create a beautiful story and game that as many people as possible can experience. Crystal probably has a lot more tech linked.
Tech stuff. So most of it's design. Most of motion sickness is design and what you're playing. So, you know, on some stores, like I think Oculus, they'll give you like a comfort level. So that's one part. So you'll find that I think a lot of New Zealand companies started in commercial kind of things like that. So we have to design no motion sickness because otherwise it's a big deal. So I think it's an easy pivot into not creating motion sickness through design. That's number one. What are you playing? And what are the movement options? Because Sam's right, there's the option, they'll always give you the option for what you feel comfortable with. And it's just checking that before you start. But another thing is the quality of the headset a little bit. You know, if you would put on a Gear, you know, Gear 360, one of those old ones, you check, like that'll make you sick. I mean, it depends on what you're playing, but that generally can make you sick. So the more higher end you go, the less likely it's to happen. But I've been noticing, like with the Quest coming out, the Vive Focus 3, their tracking's a lot better. And you may have played a virtual reality experience where it is a high quality, you know, headset, but they might have sensors that are external. And then sometimes someone can just walk past a sensor, cut off your tracking, and then you kind of, you know, you're flipped around and stuff like that. So I would look into the design of the game and what you're actually doing, and then I would look into the headsets, you know, what is the tracking? Is it sustainable? Is it, you know, is it good? And then that should avoid motion sickness. But I mean, now that the sensors are more, I guess, tracking a bit better, then it's less risk, I guess.
Yeah, it has been a few years since I've tried, so it's good to know that it's something that's gone better. Thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot better. Every year it gets better. So just try it. It's really good.
Sorry, James is giving me the look, but I just wanted to say with things like PlayStation and like, you know, publishing on there, we go through a very rigorous VRC kind of testing that they do, and we can't launch a game, until everyone's happy with how it performs on that level. So definitely at that quality level, you'll start to see that with games, where they're putting the regulations and frameworks in to make sure that no content gets released that would have that effect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I think the short version with AR stuff is, hey, we avoid the motion sickness by letting you still see the real world. Works out. It was actually something we noticed at Magic Leap, was that people were like, oh, and you can, if you try, you could probably make something motion sick with it, but we saw almost nobody because you still had a real world reference at all times. But anyways, we're definitely out of time. Thank you so much to the panel for sharing all of the wonderful experiences and knowledge that you've got. Thank you all for coming and having great questions and listening to us ramble about the things that we enjoy and struggle with. Cheers.